Thanks, Karen Corder, and along the similar lines as Deputy Maloney has said, nobody in this House should be. I think we're all in agreement that what we're being asked to do is a pretty obnoxious deed, and I don't think anybody would pretend that what we're being asked to do is fair, is right, is just, and would happen in any other circumstance than the circumstance we find ourselves in today. I mean, I've heard a lot about septic tanks today. What we're effectively talking about is what was and what still is in many people's minds and many people's consciousness a septic bank. And when this period of history is written, in 50 or 100 years' time, Anglo-Irish Bank will be written all over it. And I know to my cost and to the cost of the community which first politicised me in the docklands of Dublin, what Anglo-Irish Bank was all about. Because there's a little school down there which I used to work in, which was once promised by the Dublin Docklands Development Authority, a new building. And there was 2 members of Anglo-Irish Bank were on the board of the Dublin Docklands Development Authority. And what happened was that in their, and at the time, I mean, people have to remember, this is only 3 or 4 years ago, but the magic dust that these people sprinkled on this country, it was incredible. You could not, in all seriousness, question anything that these big developers, these big builders, these big businessmen were doing. Everything was wonderful. Keep going, ramp it up, keep it going. And what happened at that time was, Karen Corder, there was a site called the Bottle site in Ringsend, which was identified as being an ideal site. And Dublin Docklands Development Authority went in a partnership deal with a third-party developer, funded by Anglo-Irish Bank. Simultaneously, 2 board members on each, Anglo-Irish Bank and Dublin Docklands Development Authority. 400 million spent on the glass bottle site. It's now, I believe, worth something like 34. And the promissory note that my school got for a new school building went up in dust. And they are now condemned for the foreseeable future to work and to learn in an 1849 built building. The point I'm trying to say is that many people have been betrayed by this bank, by the crazy attitudes around it. And so it goes against everything that I know to be just or know to be right, to stand in a parliament like this and to speak in favour of what we are doing. But I know, as Deputy Maloney has quite rightly said, that we are effectively talking about is putting 30 billion of a promissory note process on the table in the hope that we win 1.25 billion. All the while understanding that we have 147 billion worth of ECB money in our banking system. Now, I don't gamble, alas, Count Corda, but even somebody like me would know that that's a gamble not worth the risk. Because we may lose this battle on the 1.25 billion. And it is right and just that we in this chamber, at every single opportunity, have a right to discuss this process. Because payments like this should not happen without rightfully having to discuss it, having to debate it, having a private member's motion. This is the way Parliament should work. And I welcome the opportunity to discuss it, because this is something that the Irish public will rightly want a very tight explanation on. And we are in the sorry position where, unfortunately, we have to say, little better than, we just don't think it's worth the gamble.
No more than one.
No more than one. So what we are effectively looking at is a process of working with our European partners on something which is much more valuable, deconstructing the promissory note, changing to a degree that we actually get some real change for this country. Because what would happen if we were to default on this payment? What would happen if we had to default on the previous payment? And the ECB had said, well, that's interesting, we have 110 billion in your banking system at 1%. We'll just increase that interest rate. What would happen then? And how would you explain that to the people who are rightly protesting or wanting to know what on earth this Irish government is doing? Okay, last Concord, I conclude by saying this is something we inherited. It isn't of our making. Nobody in this chamber would pretend that the Fine Gael Labour administration, that this is our fault. We are dealing with this situation as it is, as we find it. It's not something that we are happy about. But the bigger game is 30 billion. And I'm not somebody who's willing to win a battle in order to lose the war. And I think we should really be careful as to the information we send out to our constituents when we are discussing, rightfully discussing, this payment to the unsecured, unguaranteed.
Deputy Leader Mitchell, 4 minutes.